Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. The very beginning of the movie, Dr. Greer starts with, okay, we have UFOs and this spacecraft and all of that flying around the sky. We're seeing them. That's cool and all. But what about the people inside the ships? Who are they? What do they want? And how do we communicate with them? How do we make peaceful ambassadorial contact with them? So I had all my camping stuff. I hiked out in the forests in the middle of the night in freezing temperatures, 10 minus Celsius. I have never meditated ever in my life prior to this. So I had no idea what I was doing. So at the hour and a half mark, I was like, okay, I'm calm now, I'm chill, and nothing has happened, but I'm like, okay. So mentally, in my mind, I'm saying to them, okay, guys, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you're there. But if you are there, I'm ready, and you can give me whatever sign, and I'll take it. I wait a moment, and then this huge boomerang-shaped craft slowly cruising over me, and it's transparent. When you're looking through a looking glass, the image around the edges is kind of distorted, and the center is kind of more zoomed in. It was exactly like that when looking through the spaceship. And for 1 week after that, I was in this shocked state. Not because the CE5 shocked me, that experience shocked me. I loved it. It was fantastical. That was not the part that shocked me, but it was more this CE5 experience kind of showed me the proof that, oh my God, everything surrounding disclosure part of the criminality that Dr. Greer talks about, that part is real then, with the technologies of free energy and amazing medical potential, regrowing a new arm or whatever, and the poverty, the hunger, and everything surrounding the disclosure aspect, because that wouldn't have existed if the ET/CE5 stuff wasn't real.
Dr. Greer has that platform. He has the following. There are people who follow him that speak all these languages that are in need of translation. And as soon as what we believe, then there's going to be a flood of people come in, and they're going to start translating all this material and
Exactly.
documentaries.
This entire topic is contained within the English-speaking communities. So just imagine if you manage to translate the CE5 app in Spanish and Portuguese, then you will open the floodgates of a whole new part of the world. There's a lot of within the UFO spiritual community. They have a bad habit of labeling. How can you expect to make peaceful ambassadorial contact with all of cosmos if you're gonna immediately label all these civilizations as good or bad based on their appearances and size and whatever they are? You are judging a person. They are people just like you and me. They have families, they have children, siblings, their own culture and language. And literally the first ETs that were in my bedroom was a gray, and they were so loving and patient, just emanating light. They were literally hugging me. How can you call that evil? One of the things we as the CE5 Disclosure Outreach Group, we have produced a whole collection of brochures, cards, posters, all those materials that you can print out, which has all the basic information regarding CE5 and disclosure and Dr. Greer's work. And all of them has his website link, his CE5 app, and all of that.
We want people to get involved in any way you can. All we ask and all we recommend and suggest is to be proactive about it. And just as Frida said, if you have any of these technical know-how, just get involved and do what you can.
There's still a pathway. I look at this whole topic with disclosure and CE5 as the lighthouse at the end of the road is guiding us to the direction of where we can be, the potential future, what humanity, our planet can be. We can be a planet of peace and prosperity, and no poverty, no hunger, no energy shortages. We're more connected with humans, but with the animals, with the plants, and our cosmic neighbors,
My
CE5
CE5 app,
CE5.
CE5
The
contact,
Disclosure Project.
CE5 app.
CE5.
Disclosure Project.
CE5 outreach program.
The Disclosure Project.
Together, we are creating an alert and knowledgeable citizenry, one community at a time.
CE5 Ambassadors Podcast.
Don't forget to educate your local communities about CE5 or the DPIA Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, passing around cards or brochures or any information that you can provide to people.
Hi, my name is Nathaniel Ware. I'm a proactive ambassador and disclosure project activist. I've been following Dr. Greer's work since 2009. Today we have with us Frida Haugland. She is one of the most proactive ambassadors in the world, in my opinion, and she has done more with the outreach movement than anyone else up to this point. She has consistently offered her services to humanity and has been an integral part of creating materials, translating materials and films, and has become one of my closest friends. For this first episode, we'll be discussing a ton of topics, sharing stories, and moving forward, Frida and I will run the podcast together, and we're going to be inviting guests from around the world to share their stories. Frida, welcome.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me. This is really cool. I'm honored you invited me to this journey. I think it's extremely important, of course, as Nate mentioned, to not only share your CE5 stories, but everything related to disclosure and outreach work related to the topic. I think regardless of nationality, who CE5 experiences or are knowledgeable about Dr. Greer's work, I think many of them can feel very isolated, doing their part, doing their part in doing outreach work among their family, friends, and their community, but doesn't know how to do it in a more effective way, or perhaps they haven't found any friends who share the same passion or interest. So many of them, I would think, either alone or perhaps they have been very lucky to find a few people they can do the work with. I have been I'm jumping a little bit, but I've been talking to a lot of people around the world who have done fantastic work. Some of them I'm truly impressed by, which I'm sure we'll talk more about it at a later time. Yeah, so I feel like it gave me a little too much credit here because I know there are other people that are way more amazing than me. Um, so, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have you, and that we're doing this together. I think it's just great, and it's essential. I think
yeah.
that somebody has to do it. So, so I was wanting to get started with your story. How did you get involved with disclosure or C5? Which one came first? And what was that? What did it look like? Did you watch a video, a book?
Well, it was a bit of a stepping stone for me. And it's quite a journey, I would say. Because growing up, I always had strange experiences happening. Some of them were reoccurring virtually every night. Some of them happening on and off, having no idea what those were about. And I'd be happy to tell you about it, but then I would never be finished. We have limited time, so I'm gonna skip those stories. But kind of briefly, I had like ghosts in my room, and I had like sort of like out of body experiences and stuff like that. But anyway, because growing up, I never watched UFO movies because all of them are so negative. And I kept myself away the whole UFO community because from an outside perspective, they were always so negative on the topic. And to me, I always thought, hey, if there are some kind of extraterrestrials civilizations out there, and if they have then the means to travel to visit us, obviously there will be more ambassadorial, scientific, and peaceful approach than conquering and war and conquering aspect. Because I was born with a condition called aphasia, so I had no language at all as a child, and I had to go to therapy, speech therapy for my entire youth to get to where I am today. So communication has always been very important to me. So to me, the idea of communicating with some extraterrestrials or animals or other humans, always fascinated me. So then, when I was 26. Yes, I was 26 when I came across Graham Hancock, his Ancient Apocalypse TV show on Netflix. And prior to that, I was just doing video games and reading fiction books and, being a very average person doing artwork on the side. And when I watched this show, I was like, oh my God, like, oh, human history is a lie. This makes total sense to me. And then for 2 months, I was just devouring his books and podcasts and trying to learn about ancient history. Um, and after 2 months, I came across a documentary regarding UFOs, which again I had no interest in, but this person I had been following for some time, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna give him a chance on this. So I watched it, and there was this person who had a UFO encounter or ET encounter where he actually brought physical evidence with him because prior to the experience he had a medical condition, and after experience he was healed from it, and he had X-ray evidence to prove it, like the before and after image, because he had internal scarring, and the scarring was completely gone after the experiences. I'm like, aha, now there's something to this though. So then for 1 week, I went to the rabbit hole of the whole UFO topic. Because I didn't know anything about it. Of course, I was listening to Leo Lozando, Dr. Nolan, and all those mainstream people. But it didn't feel right to me. But I didn't know anything. So like, well, these are the most famous people. So I was listening for 1 week, and then after about a week, I came across a podcast by Sean, what's it called?
Ryan.
The Sean Ryan show or podcast interviewing Dr. Greer. And I listened to it and I was like, this man, he makes sense. Everything he says rings a bell of truth and just all made sense to me. So, and he mentioned he had made some movies. I'm like, okay. So I checked out his website, found his, so he had like four or five movies. I'm like, which one am I supposed to watch? Is there order to this? But then I see the title, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And as I mentioned, I haven't really watched any of the UFO movies, because almost all of them are negative. But I associated the Close Encounter title with the Close Encounter of the Third Kind movie, which, although I hadn't watched it, I knew that was one of the few ones that were depicting the whole topic in a positive light. And because I made that association, I was like, I'm gonna give this movie this is the one I'm gonna watch first. I watched it, and the very beginning of the movie, Dr. Greer starts with, okay, we have UFOs and this spacecraft and all of that flying around the sky. We're seeing them. That's cool and all. But what about the people inside the ships? Who are they? What do they want? And how do we communicate with them? How do we make peaceful ambassadorial contact with them? And when he said that, I was like, this man, he's my man. He knows, he's like, I gotta follow this guy. So I watched the whole movie and I was starstruck, because prior to this thing, I was very sad about the state of the world, with politics, with the the climate, with the poverty, the corruptions, and also for myself as well, because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was completely lost, and I had this nagging feeling all the way back to my childhood that, like, in the back of my mind, telling me you're supposed to do some kind of work related to language in terms of helping people, like, but I didn't know, like, in what way. So I watched the movie, and although there's a lot of on this topic with the whole disclosure thing and with the lost technology or the 0 point energy and everything surrounding it, although yeah, we are kind of been trapped in this kind of loop in terms of, we could have free technology or energy and more closer to utopia 100 years ago. There's still a pathway. I look at this whole topic with disclosure and CE5 as the lighthouse at the end of the road, as guiding us to the direction of where we can be, the potential future, what we as humanity, our planet can be. We can be a planet of peace and prosperity, no poverty, no hunger, no energy shortages, or we're more connected with not other fellow humans, but with the animals, with the plants, and our cosmic neighbors. We have that future. Is in our path. We just have to reach out and take it. So despite all that negativity surrounding the disclosure and all the criminality surrounding it, because I've been asked by other people, like, why is this so important to you? Why do you see this as a positive thing with all that negativity surrounding it? Because there's this lighthouse at the end. That's the road we should aim for. And we just have to reach for it. Because every human struggle throughout history, like the woman's vote, or the slavery, or independence from other large nations, all of those things had to be fought for. It doesn't come it doesn't come on a platter. You have to fight for it. I think it's a beautiful picture. So I know I'm kind of rambling there, but
No, it's good.
so after I watched the movie, I was like, my God, this is amazing. So after that, I binge watched all the movies. I binge watched all his Dr. Gray's YouTube videos, specifically regarding CE5 and how to do it and what it's about. And I thoroughly read his CE5 app. All of this in a span of a weekend. That was obsessed, man. And then on Monday night, it was crystal clear night sky. So keep in mind, because since I live in Norway, we are a nation of 5 million people, quite tiny compared to America. and Norway, almost all of Norway is just mountains and forests and fields, with a very dispersed population in terms of geographically speaking. So for us, you can just go for a few minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and then you're at the local forests, fields. So we have very easy access to nature, regardless where you live, even if you do live in a major city. So for me, I'm lucky because I live in the outskirts of my town, surrounded by forest and fields. So for me, I can just easily go for a 20-minute hike to a more ideal private location out in nature. And I'm a scout, so I'm kind of lucky. So I have all the typical camping equipment already. I have the sleeping bag, I have the camping chair, and any other appropriate clothing. And you have to keep in mind, this was in February. And February in Norway, that's full on winter, snow, ice, freezing temperatures. It might
I
have
got.
been,
I'm sorry. Can I ask real quick? So,
yeah,
with your how you got started? Is this where the point where you went to go try your
my
first C5?
first CE5.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, let's hear
So
it.
so this was 4 days after watching Dr. Greer's Close Encounters, because I just wanted to jump right in it. So I had all my camping stuff. I hiked out in the forest in the middle of the night in freezing temperatures. It might have been 10 minus Celsius. I think that would be 14 Fahrenheit for you, I think. I hike out, I go inside my sleeping bag and everything. I have never meditated ever in my life prior to this. So I had no idea what I was doing. But I tried to follow the instructions of the app. So like for an hour and a half, I just lay there, closing my eyes and trying to meditate. And there's some animal in the bushes screaming the whole time. And although I'm very used to being out in the forest, and at night it's usually with my scouts. I'm not alone. This is my first time being completely alone at night in nature. So I'm like, oh, this is kind of scary. Um, and I kind of, jittery and kind of like nervous, like not because I was nervous at the thought of potentially meeting an ET. I was more worried about that animal in the bushes. Because there's a lot of animals, mooses and foxes and badgers and whatnot. So, but after an hour and a half trying to meditate, I finally calmed down and just accepted that whatever it is in the bushes, just that is not interested in me. And I finally um, completely calmed down, and nothing has happened yet. But I was prepared that nothing would happen on my first try, because I understood you needed to have a calm mind in order to start a connection. So I was prepared that I wouldn't succeed the first night. I was fully prepared I needed to try on several nights potentially before anything would happen. But so at that hour and a half mark, I was like, okay, I'm calm now, I'm chill, and nothing has happened. But I'm like, okay. So mentally, in my mind, I'm saying to them, okay, guys, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you're there, but if you are there, don't take this personally. It's not the issue is not with you. The issue is with me. I'm the problem here. so 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 um I've been jittery because of that animal, but I'm cool now. So I'm ready. And if you are comfortable, and you can give me whatever sign you're comfortable with, and I'll take it. And I wait a moment, and then on this field I was at, surrounded by a forest, on the other end of the field, there's this huge white shooting star that is really close and has a long tail and the tail is covered in sparkles like Tinkerbell, and it's flying in slow motion falling from the sky and landing on the field, on hitting the ground on the opposite end of the field I was at. And keep in mind the field I was at that is relatively small, so it was fairly close to me. And it hit the ground or landed on the ground, and the moment it touched, it disappeared, and it was completely quiet. And I was like, what was that? Because me not having any experiences, I was like, was that a shooting star? But I couldn't bend because it was quiet, and then it was so slow. And I'm like, what? And but I thought, okay, regardless whether that was a legit shooting star or an ET, I was like, I take it. That was a great sign. So I'm like, thank you, universe. Um, and I was looking at it to see if something more would happen. And then nothing happened. I was like, okay. So then I look at a different direction of the sky. And I see this huge boomerang-shaped craft slowly cruising over me, and it's transparent. So remember, it's completely crystal clear skies. There aren't any clouds. I can see all the stars and the Milky Way. So as this as this ship is slowly cruising, it's transparent. And you know how when you're looking through a looking glass, the image around the edges is kind of distorted, and the center is kind of more zoomed in. It was exactly like that when looking through the spaceship. So all the edges was distorted, and so I could see the stars behind it, or through it, but it was all distorted and weird looking, and was slowly cruising over me. And it was really low to the ground as well. It wasn't that far above the tree line, and it was big, and it was cruising over for about maybe 7 seconds or so before it just poof disappeared. No light or anything, just poof. And I was like, what? Oh my God, this is amazing. Like, because like that was like the tipping point, like, oh my God, everything he said, like Dr. Greer has said about the whole disclosure CE5, all of it is real. Oh my God. So then, and this is not the end, I go back home. I go to bed, and almost immediately laying down on the bed, I had my eyes closed and I laying to the side. I could feel an entity hovering over me. and I was like, what is this? And I don't dare open my eyes because I didn't know what was happening. And just keep in mind, I had prior to this, or even at this, I didn't know anything about spirituality. I didn't know what chakras were. I didn't know what out-of-body experiences were. I didn't know what remote viewing was. I didn't know anything. Um, and I can feel the gravity of my body is kind of being pushed. I'm not being touched, but like the gravity is being pushed down the bed. And I kind of, not knowing what's going on, I'm like, oh, being a bit scary. And the moment I have a feeling, and presumably the ET, is backing off. I'm like, okay, you don't like this, I'll stop. And then we just, oh no, this is like CE5 related. Because I remember Dr. talking about that you could have follow-up experiences at night or the following days after CE5. So I realized, so this is CE5 related. So I'm like, no, go, don't go, keep going. So they're like, okay, so they kind of keep pushing. I'm like, oh, so push, release, push, release, push, release. Kind of this dance going on for a long time. And after a while, it's like, am I just imagining this? Is this it's just me just breathing hard or something? And they were like, no, man. So I could feel their arm, not touching me, but I could feel their arm touching the mattress behind me and shifting the mattress. I'm like, oh my God, this is real. So push, release for a while longer. And then my astral, not physical, my astral body was lifted. So basically having an out-of-body experience. So my astral body is being lifted off the bed, placed on the floor beside the bed. And then I open my eyes and I can see the ETs laying on the ground behind me, and I can see their arm reaching over me and hugging me from behind. So I can see this long gray hand with long fingers. And I don't remember, it's either 3 or 4 fingers, but either way. And I'm looking at this arm and I go, oh my God. and then underneath that arm, I can see this tiny ET, a different species, tiny ET climbing underneath, like out from underneath the arm, and like, hey. And that tiny one, he looked just like the Atacama, is that how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
The ET, just not mummified, but healthy. and uh, and I'm like, oh my God, and then all of us stand up, and I'm in this kind of fixed shock state, just staring at them like, and then, and then, and they're like, the two of them are like so chill, and they're so patient with me, and just emanating this love and peace, um, and and then and then the small one, he walks across the room, climbs up my shelf, and he takes out one of my one-time usage cameras, and he's like, come on over here, and and he gives me the camera, like, and doing this signage of take a picture. I'm like, okay. So I take pictures of the big one, and the large ET, he's kind of doing like funny poses and funny faces, and then that completely relaxes me. And then because, as you probably noticed, I'm a chatterbox. So 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 then I start talking to him, and like, what's your name? Where you come from? What's your hobby? Do you play sports? Do you read books? What's your planet like? And then he does this hush sign. He's not saying anything, but just doing the hush sign and then tapping his own head. And I'm like, yeah, telepathy. And like, that's what you want. Obviously, that makes sense. But the moment I think of telepathy, I'm thinking of my body, and that I'm zapped back to my body. And like, and then I wake up like, no, take me back. I want to see Ant-Man. So that was my first experience with CE5, and whole introduction to this. So
Wow.
it was quite the intense first introduction, you could say.
Wow.
And
That's
and for 1 week after that, I was in this shocked state. Not because the CE5 shocked me, that experience shocked me. I loved it. It was fantastical. That was not the part that shocked me, but it was more everything surrounding it, because this CE5 experience kind of showed me the proof that, oh my God, everything surrounding disclosure part, all the criminality that Dr. Greer talks about, that part is real then, with the technologies of free energy, and the amazing medical potential, regrowing a new arm or whatever, and the poverty, the hunger, and everything surrounding the disclosure aspect, because that wouldn't have existed if the ET/CE5 stuff wasn't real. So there was more of the criminalities, because when I had the confirmation that the whole CE5 stuff was real, then it meant that the disclosure was real, and all the criminality surrounding it. So that was kind of the part of, I was almost in this shocked, almost traumatized state for a week, for like, oh my God, my whole life, and all of, not just with my own life, but the whole surrounding of the current paradigm that we are living in, like gas and oil, and or all transportation systems, or educational system, or the politics, and all of that is just bullshit. Sort of my language, but we could have had it 100 years ago. We could have a much closer, by now. We would have been much closer to a more utopian world.
absolutely.
But we were taken from that. So it kind of, so afterward, I got over it. I'm like, I need to do something, man. But I wanted to make sure I could actually, that my CE5 wasn't just because I wanted to show people, but I wanted to make sure I actually had CE5 handed. So I wanted to make sure I persistently was able to do CE5 on my own. So like 2 months, I think I did CE5 like virtually every night, before I invited my first guest with me. And he had a profound experience, and he was like, because we had like tons of activity, and one of them was like having an orb flying in circles over our heads, and we were on top of a mountain right beside a deep valley. And then we have like this slow motion shooting star fly from the sky and inside the valley. And yeah, so from day one doing CE5, I kept doing CE5 almost every night for half a year. And after the 2 month mark, I started to trying to inviting people with me, which is not easy. Yes, I'm sure as many of you knows, and especially in Norway in winter. Convincing people stay out at night, um, in the cold is, it's not fun. And in Norway being so far to the north, almost up to the Arctic, or we are an Arctic country, so being so far, like virtually on the top of the globe, the winter is almost completely in darkness throughout the day. And summer is the opposite, where we have the midnight sun, meaning we have only daylight. We don't have the nighttime at all. There's no darkness. So especially if you live in the northern part, the sun does not travel below the horizon. And luckily for me, I lived in the eastern part, which is almost down to the bottom of Norway. So we do have daylight at night, but the sun is not there. So if I wait till midnight, there would be like more twilight, dark-ish. So I can still see when I do CE5, but it's not proper darkness. So, but then it's difficult convincing people, because then I have to wait till midnight before doing anything. So,
It's funny.
so it's a lot more challenging doing CE5 in Norway due to our geographical location and climates. But I have been doing CE5 now for persistently for 2 years. So after the half year, the first half year where I did almost every night. After that, I started doing it once a week, twice a week, or sometimes skipping a week or two. But I do try to invite friends and family where I can, and 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 I try to show the movies, the books where I can.
That's a good point. And I was kind of wanted to segue into that, you know, something that you had mentioned, and that's, things that we can do for the, in the future, or not even now for the future. But
Yes.
I first wanted to mention a couple of things that you spoke about, which are absolutely amazing. And thank you for sharing your story. It's, very compelling, and it's just great to hear that and be able to share that. Um, One of the first things, my one of my best friends, he had his first sighting, but it wasn't with me. Like, I've been talking about this for a few years at this point, and he had no interest whatsoever. He's religious, didn't want to get involved at all. And then one day he was at one of our other friends' house. He was laying, by the pool looking up, and it was kind of like, almost, it was like dusk. It was like the sun was going down, and a triangular or boomerang shaped craft went over him. And he even sent a picture and sent it to me. And his explanation when we talked over the phone after was that around the edges of the craft, it kind of warped the star field behind it. And then with
Mm,
inside it, he said it was kind of like distorted, almost like a mirage in a hot
yeah.
desert. And so it's kind of cool to hear that. And the only other place that I've ever seen that explanation, I'm sure there's other places, but the only other place I've personally heard or read about it was in one of Dr. Greer's books. I think it was the one from 2009. What is it? The one with the equilateral triangle, the CSETI logo.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
but anyways, yeah, that was cool to hear you share that, because I actually didn't know that about you. This was pretty cool. The other thing is, um, Dr. Greer making sense. I can resonate with that. And, it seems like there's a set of people that can resonate with it, where it's like, you can hear this information in other places, but then when you hear it from Dr. Greer and the way that he presents it, it's just like, I don't know. But I understand that fully. And I think a lot of people who listen to this will be
Yeah.
on the same page with that. So that was great to hear that. Now jumping into the light at the end of the tunnel, there's a, this huge part within ourselves and ambassadors alike, who feel like there's something they wish they could do something.
Mm.
They want to be more involved. A lot of us are at this point, like we always talk about, we're sharing on social media. We're interacting with our family and our coworkers. We're doing the common things. And we'll jump into, the whole situation with, social media and sharing this. I mean, it's great, it's essential, but it's also futile in terms of reaching new people. And we'll jump into that. But as far as, reaching the light at the end of the tunnel, that lighthouse, what are some of the ideas and some of the things that you would like to share with people that, for them to get involved, for them to be a part of this disclosure and, moving forward?
Well, so there's a lot of things people can do. Obviously, share on social media, but that can only go so far. Um, I think it's more important to try to work on your own local community. I think that's more easier in a way, especially when they have like face-to-face discussions. One of the things we as the CE5 disclosure outreach group, we have produced a lot of, well, a whole collection of brochures, cards, posters, banners.
Flyers.
Yeah, so all those materials that you can print out, which has all the basic information regarding CE5 and disclosure and Dr. Beer's work, and all of them has his website link, his CE5 app, and all of that. Because some people would be totally comfortable being on a stage and do like a PowerPoint presentation and talking on this topic. But not everyone is comfortable with that, which is really great, having all this printable material that we have made, so that you can print it out. You can maybe hand them out at the mall, at the park, or
Yeah.
when you go to your knitting club or whatever social activities you do in your off time. You could have a movie night at your local library or other facilities where you show doctors' movies, or maybe you could make a booth at the park or some other locations where you have the materials. Like you have done that a lot, where you have the materials, the movies, and then you have like a casual face-to-face discussions with the passing people. Maybe you're a student or a teacher at the university, and you have the booth, or you do the movie night, or maybe you make a club, if that, like an off time, like a CE5 disclosure club, where you do open to public activities.
Yeah.
You
There's
invite
been a
people to live.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off there. There's been so many great ideas that
Yes.
Frida's just mentioned, that there's ambassadors all over the world who are conducting these outreach, or, all these different ways that they're comfortable with. I mean, and then there's even the, the 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 different kinds of outreach that aren't specifically communicating with a person directly. For example, there have been people who have like the DPIA cards or the CE5 contact cards or what have you, and they'll leave them around. Recently someone was leaving them in the windshield wipers on vehicles, and and so I mean,
Yes.
it's an idea. Or even someone pitched around the idea of leaving like flyers in certain places. We know that Renata in the United Kingdom, she went on a bunch of the public transportation trains, etc., and she started leaving around these flyers on the chairs. And it's those things are so important, because a lot of people think, well, how effective is that? And what we always talk about is it's more effective than doing nothing, because even if you leave, let's say, 100 flyers or 100 cards, or you pass them out with whatever you do, there's going to be a percentage of people who end up looking into it. And even if there's nobody who looks into it, even if nobody looks into it, there may be a situation where later down the road, one of those individuals, hopefully many, will run into a situation where they're hearing about it and talking about it, and they may have that, flyer laying around, or maybe they'll remember it, or you get home, you have something tangible now that you found or somebody handed to you. You empty your pockets out when you get home. You put your wallet and your phone and whatever, and you pull that out. It's a very good chance that that person may potentially look into it. Now, with in terms of what we can do, the sky's the limit. And what we're
Exactly.
proposing, and what we're proposing is that we do something. And I kind of wanted to jump into why it's important to understand why social media is not as effective as most of us think it is. So, Frida and I have had long conversations on this and we've had meetings with ambassadors around the world. So everybody's on the same page about this. But, when you get online and you start, scrolling through your feeds, you see the things that you are uh, familiar with, or the things that you like. It's preference based algorithms.
Mm,
And so you're not getting on there. Some people aren't getting on there like, and scrolling through and seeing, let's say, North Atlantic deep sea fishing, or maybe they're not seeing uh, makeup tutorials from, the past or what have you. They're not seeing those things. Well, I mean, I'm talking about well, right now for ambassadors, like, or sorry, the general public. Or if it's not in your preferences, you're not going to see it. So in terms of the general public, if they're unfamiliar, like we were at one time, or all of us were, they're not seeing disclosure project witnesses. They're not seeing advanced energy technologies and physicists and engineers. They're not seeing the implications for the future and what it means for our planet and all life on it, and the future generations. They're not seeing contact and what that could mean for the, humanity. They're not seeing any of those things. And so in order to put that on their radar and for them, to have that in their their preferences, they have to first look it up. And then, as most of us know, you look up something, or you you start seeing it more and more. So that's kind of the idea behind this. But it's just we have to understand that that's not going to happen until we go beyond the algorithm. And then that's what we're proposing. We are proposing going offline. Obviously continue to do what we're doing online. Right? They need a place. The people in the public need a place to come back to. They need these references, these sources, these websites. So that has to continue. But we also have to go offline. We've got to provide them the information, and we've got to hope that, a larger percentage of people begin looking into this, because that's the only way this is going to change. I wanted to just mention another thing, flow into that. You know, there's a number of ways that people are getting involved. There are people like Dr. Greer, who have the stage, if you will. And that is huge. And so then there's people like you and I, the regular day, the everyday citizen. And as Dr. Greer has always said, it is up to us, we the people, and everybody knows that. I mean, this is something that can't be ignored. It can't be pushed aside when all of us begin doing this. So that goes into, what Frida was saying. Our communities. It's best to start within your own community, because first of all, it's each of our responsibility. If you live in a community, let's say 300,000 people, a million, there is a small percentage of people in that community who are aware of these things. Therefore, you are, as an ambassador, responsible for that community and the level of awareness they are to these issues, because there's nobody else going to do it. It's got to be you. And so we are proposing, and we are pushing, and we're going to continue pushing on this podcast and otherwise for ambassadors to raise awareness in their communities. There's it's been a arduous task to do this, but it's something that has to be done. And kind of going back to where I was at, there's Dr. Greer, there's the online efforts, there's the documentaries and films, and then there's this. It's like the final frontier, in my opinion, as far in terms of disclosure and awakening, because you know it. I can't see any other way where people will come together and do what they need to do. This is it. This is what it has to be this way. So the vision really is people in communities all over the world, in this country, other countries, to begin passing out these materials that we've created, these videos, these things for the public. Which brings me to translation. This is very important, and you have some good points on how the U.S. has a great cache of information, but it's not really reaching the rest of the world. Did you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yes. So, although it's true that English is the global international language, and of course it is very useful and many people do know English. Although outside the natives English-speaking communities, as speaking from someone who is from Europe, I know that when it comes to English fluency, is a lot of hit and miss for each individual. So for some people, they might have like everyday conversational level fluency, or less than that, or hardly anything. While some people might have like really high fluency where they can speak or have conversation on deep topic like the CE5 and disclosure, which is a very complicated and very advanced in terms of language. So and to kind of give you a perspective, because a lot of the Hollywood movies and music and a lot of entertainment is in English. And yes, we Europeans, and I'm sure a lot of other places around the world, are bombarded by American entertainment. However, in a lot of countries, especially Germany, Spain, Portugal, and France, at least when it comes to movies, they dub everything in their own native language, which makes it so that the average person over there, although they do get English education, they a lot of the case they wouldn't get as much as English exposure, and then English fluency training. Of course, that's not to say there aren't any individuals in those countries that could have really high fluency level. Of course, there are people like that, but again, it's a hit and miss. So, and to give a perspective, the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, Finland, we are ranked as among #1 countries in the world in terms of English fluency as a secondary language. And even with that, speaking on my friends and family in Norway, I know some of them I can show all of this to them because their English is really good. While many of them, even whether they're young or older, I know I couldn't show any of these materials to them because the language vocabulary it's too advanced for them. So for them it would just fly over them. So I know, not just speaking for myself, but I know ambassadors all over the world outside of the English-speaking communities. They are severely handicapped because they cannot, due to the language barrier, they can't show any of the materials to the families or friends of their communities. And I have had the same conversation with many ambassadors from from Spain, Portugal, France, Netherlands. So Dr. Greer's work and the materials, the printable materials that we have made, really need to be translated at the very least in the more major languages like Portuguese and Spanish and French and German, and hopefully,
Yes.
as many languages as possible, because there are tons of languages like Hindu and I don't remember what the population of India is, but that's a large population. So
Yeah. I want
so
to jump in there real
yeah,
quick. So, Frida, you wrote a letter that we submitted to the
yes,
Disclosure Project in addition to the request to push for this outreach effort for, um, and, you know, part of what you're talking about now was included in that letter. And that
yes,
is it is essential. It is paramount that this undertaking be undertook by the Disclosure Project because Dr. Greer has that platform. He has the following.
yes,
There are people who follow him that speak all these languages that are in need of translation.
yes,
And as soon as what we believe, as soon as this is taken up, then there are gonna be a flood of people who
exactly,
come in and they're gonna start translating all this material and
exactly.
documentaries. Yeah. Hmm.
This entire topic is contained within the English-speaking communities and the few handful of those who happen to be really fluent in the language. Um, so just imagine if you manage to translate the CE5 app in Spanish and Portuguese, then you will open the floodgates of a whole new part of the world who would then jump into it. Because the CE5 apps, the movies, the books, everything is in English. So
Websites,
the
everything.
website, yeah, and the DPA, and
It's a huge undertaking
it
for the
is a huge
disclosure
undertaking. Yes, it
for
is.
the Disclosure Project to do this, and there's not
Of
enough
course.
manpower. They're not funded, just as we're
Yes.
not. We don't even take donations, and
Yes.
the donations that they have go to, in this case, more important things. I hate to say that, but there are, other things that they're doing. But we believe, our belief is that this may be even more important than everything else, and that's, because like even Dr. Greer said himself, this is up to us. So it's so important for the rest of the world, the general public from all these countries to be, knowledgeable of these things, from their language and not have to miss bits and pieces because they're not fluent. And so, this is a huge undertaking for the Disclosure Project, but I believe as soon as there's a call, there are going to be volunteers who are willing to step forward and begin translating. We've had that success. I know
Yeah.
we're working with someone from France and Germany, and we've had a couple people from Mexico who's translated. There's been people from several countries around the world, and they're continuing to flow in. But we only have so much of a reach. In fact, we don't want to have any kind of recognition or anything. We just want people to do what's right and to do,
Exactly.
get involved. And so we
Exactly.
we really, would appreciate, I just want to throw this in there real quick. Anyone who does listen to this, to share this, to, also reach out to the Disclosure Project if you are able to transfer, or reach out to us if you are able to translate, excuse me, any of the materials into languages. So we have the pamphlets, the banners, the signage, the cards. Those things can be translated, and they're very small. It's not a lot of detail in those things, but you could translate those, and it'd be very helpful for the outreach movement worldwide. And then as far as documentaries, and websites or position papers from Dr. Greer, or even translating some of the um, some of the documents, the government documents. Um, those things could be translated. And so, it's very important. And if you can help, please reach out to Frida or I. You can reach us at CE5 underscore disclosure underscore outreach on Instagram, or you could reach us on, where's your Instagram, Frida?
Yeah. So my Instagram is Frida Art. And you can also find me on Facebook, Frida Haugland. I'm sure you can edit in, you can show like pictures and stuff. They're really easy to find. Um, and I'm very active on Insta and Facebook, since people contact me regularly. So So don't be shy, I don't bite. And yeah, so just this morning I was emailing another CE5 ambassador from Netherlands, and she and her colleague are in hard production in translating all this stuff, not just the printable stuff, but the De Beers work into Dutch and French. That and they already translated the Close Encounters movie, and they already met a lot of people over there who has viewed it. If you have the capacity to translate into your native language, or maybe joining already existing group like this Dutch and French person, assisting to speed up the process. It's just don't overthink it. Just jump. Just
Mhm.
jump. Because I feel like a lot of people are too hesitant or think, oh, I can't do it. I'm not good enough, or or there's just too much. That's just too much work to translate everything. We have modern technology, guys. We can, you can do a little bit cheating. You can use like ChatGPT to do the heavy lifting for you to translate. But of course, afterwards you review it and check
Peer
the
review. Yeah.
misspelling or miswording or whatever. But it would have done the heavy lifting within a few minutes, and that would, it's cheap, it's fast, and I have done it a lot myself, to English to Norwegian and back and forward. Of course, I always review it for corrections, but it's really, really good. So, but obviously, do whatever you are comfortable with. And even like with the app, the CE5 app. If you are techie, if you know coding, you can email the CE5 group. No, sorry, Dr. Greer's group, because I can, when we do the editing, we can provide the actual email, because they have a specific email for any tips or technical assistance specifically for the CE5 app. So if you're an IT guy where you want to provide your volunteer assistance with making the app even better, or the DPA archive, where they have a lot of need to. It's not properly funded yet. They need more funding to expand the website, to properly upgrade the labeling, and finding, when you're searching whatever documents you want to find, and organizing it. And if you have the technical know-how, if you want to do it as a volunteer, contact them. They Dr. Gear's team, they really need volunteers, guys. So if you have the technical IT knowledge, if you're really good at language, whether it's Dutch or German or Hindu or whatever, if you have a lot of money, if you're a rich guy, just donate, or maybe you have like a business savvy, if you're really good at communicating or advertising, contact the team, help them advertise or expanding, help them planning out how can we reach a more wider public, or maybe you're really good at organizing events or something. You could assist them with that when they do like a CE5 events or something. There are lots of people can do. Don't think you don't have anything, because we all can contribute in a smaller or larger ways in whatever areas. Whether you decide to help Dr. Gerstein directly or just do outreach work in your community, do what you are good at, whatever form that may take. Maybe you're a good artist. Maybe you're really good at writing. Perhaps maybe you make music. Use whatever talent you have to spread the word, to assist in whatever the way that should be. So
This
don't
is
minimize yourself.
exactly, that's perfect points to make on this. And, kind of to, end the podcast here, we want to, continue this calling. We want people to get involved in what any way you can. All we ask and all we recommend and suggest is to be proactive about it. And just as Frida said, if you have any of these technical know-how, just, get involved and do what you can. And so, with that said, we really hope people look into some of the work that we've put together. It's based on the work of Dr. Greer, and all we're doing is, finding ways to get it to the public. And so check that out and get involved in any way you can. We're, we have a bunch of different things that are in development, one of which is the materials and, the presentation and distribution materials could potentially be on Dr. Greer's websites in the near future, and it's possible that he could even make a calling, just as he has for whistleblowers, legal experts, filmmakers, etc., whistleblowers and volunteers, etc. So, that's one of the updates that we have. We have another gentleman who's been in development of an app for this, so that way people around the world can see, photos and videos of these outreach events in their locations, and you can get ideas from here or over there, and then you can conduct your own outreach and put it on, upload it on there so others can see what you've done, and you can share your stories, and you can communicate with other contactees or ambassadors. And so, there's a number of things that are in development now. Unfortunately, with this app, which was gonna be free or is gonna be free, we haven't heard back from him in a few months. So we don't know what the state of that is. We did get to see a version of it as it was in development, but since some coordination, we haven't heard from them, so not too sure what the status is on that. We followed up and just no response back yet. So, then there's also, uh, you know, with CE5, and I think this is a key point to touch on before we end the meeting. In my own experience, and people who have been in this outreach effort, we noticed that our contact experiences went up exponentially, and it's not even close. I mean, in comparison to when I first had my first several contact experiences to when we began doing this, it was as if the extraterrestrial intelligence that's out there or around us, they knew what we were doing without a doubt, and they let us know that they were there. Maybe that was their way of saying we're on the right path, or that they support us, or both, or who knows. And so I think it's a cool thing to keep in mind, because everybody who goes out and wants to interact with these civilizations, it's good to have something. And I think that's what they want. They want us to be more involved. They want us to be more proactive. They care about our planet sometimes more than we do ourselves. And so when we begin doing this and we're going down the right path, they will let you know. So go ahead.
I just want to add, on this whole CE5 disclosure topic, and Dr. Greer has mentioned it many times, you cannot focus on politics, on religion, on nationality, all those labels. Is if you want to be a CE5 ambassador, if you want this beautiful potential future that we do have the capacity to reach out to, if you want that, if you want to have make contact with other civilizations through the stars who looks nothing like us, for all, I don't know, maybe a group could be like have a beak or feathers, or maybe they are slime, or maybe they're like large as a house or tiny as a mouse, or have a tail, have claws. I don't know. I have no clue. But that doesn't matter. If we are going to have, ambassador peaceful contact with all these civilizations that are, who knows how many there are. How are we supposed to have contact and friendship with them if you cannot make peace with our fellow humans? So, and this is what I really like about Greer. He does not care what political party, religion, nationality, all those labels, and you focus on the mission. Because if I were to do like ambassadorial work and outreach when talking to other people about this, and if I find out, oh, you support this and this political person or religion, then I don't want to have anything to do with you. We are not going to reach that lighthouse if you do that.
It's important to understand that, and that this what we're doing, this information that Dr. Beers put together, disclosure, contact, whether people like it or not, it supersedes everything else.
Yes.
It does. I mean, it supersedes everything because it encompasses everything about humanity, everything.
Yes.
Every aspect of life on earth is encompassed by this. And so we can't have those superficial boundaries that,
Yes.
limit us from connecting with people. So
Yes. So just like how historically, Russia versus US, where you have this old Cold War stuff going on, if you guys hadn't come to the table, we would have blown up this planet long ago. So, we need to, all of humanity, we have to come to the table and talk to each other and come to an agreement, and not backstabbing and back talking, and it's not good for anyone. And this is another topic, our point I want to point out. There's a lot of within the UFO spiritual community, they have a bad habit of labeling the ETs as this group is a good ET, or this group of ET are bad, just because because a lot of people say like, oh, this ET who's like a reptilian or a gray or whatever, they must be bad, they're evil or something. And then this other group of ETs that look like a Norwegian, a Swedish, a Danish, an Icelandic, they must be good people. Like, no, stop that. That's racism. That's not cool. How can you expect to make like peaceful ambassadorial contact with all of cosmos if you're gonna immediately label all these civilizations as good or bad based on their appearances and size and whatever they are? You are judging a person. They are people just like you and me. They have families, they are children, siblings, their own culture and language and whatever whatever they have. Like if I were to, as a Norwegian, if I were to go to I don't know, Brazil or China or Korea or whatever, and I see a Korean person or a Brazilian person, say immediately, because they have a different skin color, different hair color, and all of that, and I'm gonna say you are evil because of their superficial appearance. That's just racism, guys. Cut it out.
Yep.
Because literally the first ETs that were in my bedroom was a gray, and this tiny Akatama. I'm sorry, my pronunciation, but that tiny one.
Yeah.
Like, and they were so loving and patient, just emanating light, and were literally hugging me. How can you call that evil? Stop that, guys. That's not
Yeah.
cool. So that was my
No, good. Definitely good points, especially for those who may be new to the subject, who aren't
Yes.
familiar with that mindset. It's
Yes.
such a critical mindset to have, to be open and, kind of emulate the things that you've experienced. That it's loving, and that's the same thing that we're supposed to reciprocate towards all of these life forms. So yeah, great point. With that said, we're going to end this podcast here. Thank you to anyone who's tuned in. Please reach out to us and, get involved. Do what you can. Take pictures, take videos, share them with the CE5 community. There's groups all over on Facebook. We've got the app. Connect with your fellow citizens, connect with your fellow ambassadors. Let's do what we can, and let's continue to help push disclosure, because we're only gonna come to a new world if we come together. So that's exactly what we have to do. So thank you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Frida.
Peace.